Trichirappalli. I extend a warm welcome to each one of you for this momentous evening. I am Dr. Satyanarayana Rentala, Associate Professor Marketing at BIM Trichy. It's an honor for me to take you to the proceedings for this evening. I once again welcome you to this fireside chat on globalizing Indian thoughts. We are honored to have with us Professor Debashish Chatterjee, Director, Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, who was instrumental in shaping up the credo of IIM Kozhikode, globalizing Indian thoughts by inculcating authenticity, Satyam, sustainability, Nityam, and fulfillment, Purnam. It's a pleasure to have with us Dr. Asit K. Burma, Director, BIM Trichy, who will moderate this fireside chat. It will also be an enriching experience for each one of us to listen to this fireside chat based on the book authored by Professor Debashish Chatterjee. The title of the book is Leadership Chronicles, My Experiments with Globalizing Indian Thought, and Building a Frame for the Future of Leadership in India and across the globe. I now invite Professor Debashish Chatterjee to grace the dais, accompanied by our director, Dr. Asit K. Burma. Thank you, sir. I also take this opportunity and very happy to inform all of you that this event also serves as the opening session for the elective on leaders and leadership offered to our second year students in the sixth trimester. All the students who are part of that course are in the third and the fourth rows of this particular course. And I'm sure it's a blessing for all of us to start this course on listening to the thoughts by Professor Debashish Chatterjee. I now invite Ms. Smriti Sugandh, second year MBA student, who incidentally also is part of that elective, to introduce Professor Debashish Chatterjee and our director, Dr. Asit K. Burma.
Good evening, everyone. Warm welcome. So, Professor Debashish Chatterjee has taught leadership classes at Harvard University and at IIM Institutes of Management, Calcutta, Lucknow, and Kozhikode for more than 2 decades. He has been awarded the prestigious Fulbright Fellowship twice for pre-doctoral research and postdoctoral work at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. His published works include 18 books, including Karma Sutras, Leading Consciously, foreword by Peter M. Senge for both the books, and Timeless Leadership, Wiley, that have been translated into several international languages. Recently, he published Leadership Chronicles, My Experiments with Globalizing Indian Thought. He has trained more than 50,000 managers globally in the Fortune 100 corporations and over 25,000 school principals and teachers. His book, Invincible Arjuna, has emerged as a path-breaking book in the recent times. He has served as a leadership coach to political leaders and CEOs of major Indian organizations. He has served as the Dean of SP Jain School of Global Management in Singapore. A pioneer in the field of Asian models in leadership, Professor Chatterjee served as the Director of the Indian Institute of Management, IIM Kozhikode, for the first term from 2009 to 2014, and a second term from 2018 to 2023. Dean and tenured professor at IIM Lucknow, Professor Chatterjee is credited as transforming IIM Kozhikode from an obscure regional school to an institution of national impact and global recognition. He also served as a Director General of IMI Delhi, Delhi's first corporate-sponsored business school, and as an independent director on the boards of several multinational and Indian companies. Professor Debashish Chatterjee was the mentor director of IIM Amritsar from June 2018 to July 2019. He has been reappointed as the director of IIM Kozhikode for the fifth 5-year term. We welcome you, sir. We now extend our welcome to our director, Asit K. Burma, a B.Tech in Electronics Engineering from IIT Madras, an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, and a national scholarship recipient, Dr. K. Asit Burma, received his PhD from the Faculty of Management Sciences, University of Madras. In his 36 years of industry and academic career, he played senior leadership roles in corporates like CMC, formerly IBM and now TCS, Tech Mahindra, Hinduja Tech, and Value Labs. He taught at IIM Ghaziabad and Jagdish Sheth School of Management, Bangalore, before joining Baidasan Institute of Management as its director and professor in February 2021. A certified MarkStrat and digital MarkStrat instructor, Dr. Asit K. Barma is a visiting professor at IIM Kashipur. He worked.
Okay. I think it's fine. We are already quite late.
Okay, sir.
It's okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So we welcome both of you.
Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. And it's our proud privilege to welcome Dr. Debashish Chatterjee. Is it okay? Yeah, Kano. So, yes. So, Dr. Chatterjee, thank you so much for making it here.
Thank you.
And I wish I could take you to the campus. But beauty of this assembly is that we have alumni from IIT Madras, from IIM Ahmedabad, from BIM Trichy, and also from IIM Kozhikode. So it's a unique crowd you have. And we have also directors from CBRD, then directors, two business school directors here, and also like we have this head of sustainability program in this TVS group who is working with the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister's departments, and we have Tamil Nadu Chief Minister's Fellowship Program participants. And so this book I got through a gift, New Year's gift you can say, from Dr. Chatterjee. And usually I don't read these leadership related books. I don't get much time to read, but whatever time I get, I read only my subject, books on my subjects. But this book, when I went through, so it was written in such a lucid manner, such an interesting manner, and it does not look like some sermons, like 7 CEO habits and all that you see, in that bookstalls. So it is so absorbing that that immediately I decided that our course, Leaders and Leadership, that is the HR and OB course, I decided that I'll be leading it. So I asked my other colleague, who is from finance. So I'm from marketing, she is from finance. We are taking a OB course. So that is the advantage of being a director. So my HR area chair could not say no to it and accepted. So the first session that they will be attending is Dr. Debashish Chatterjee's session here today. So this is how they are starting. And who can be a better person to teach that? Who has taught this leadership at Harvard. So that is where, without much ado, so while welcoming Dr. Chatterjee, I want to open up the conversation, asking the first question is that this globalizing Indian thoughts, that has become a momentum. Now, he is the first to start it. So, Dr. Chatterjee, could you explain, what triggered this idea of globalizing Indian thoughts? What is the genesis of this? And what made you articulate this as the vision of the institute at IIM Kozhikode? So if we think of IIM Kozhikode for one single aspect, then immediately we think of globalizing Indian thoughts. And many others are trying to copy it. In fact, I drew inspiration from there, and I'm exploring that how I can do it at BIM. So that Center for Indian Thoughts and Leadership, so that I have set up. You can say that this is the first such event that is happening in that context. So if you can briefly tell us that, it will be great. Thank you.
First and foremost, thank you for your patience. We started a good 1 hour later than scheduled. For those of you who came early, my apologies. We were more or less on time, but incidents. Professor Asit Barma is a very erudite person, distinguished professor, talking to a nearly extinguished faculty. But I do appear in my classrooms. I teach 200 hours. The first question I asked when I entered a campus in the IIM was, what is Indian about Indian Institute of Management? And the answer was precious little, right? Our pedagogy was Harvard MIT product. We were doing a Shankar Netralaya case study from the Harvard Business School, We spend ₹500 crore buying case studies from Harvard, most of it on companies and problems that occur in India. And the first challenge was not globalizing Indian thought. First challenge was Indianizing Indian thought. Because to be able to make it acceptable to the average Indian, to say what to stand for. So, when this question was asked by my faculty, so how do you globalize Indian thought from a hilltop called Kunnamangalam in Kerala? Nobody knows this place. I said, look, it is not the place. It is the aspiration space of 300,000 people who take the CAT exam to get into 400 positions that we offer. And this talent that is coming into the IIM is coming from 1.4 billion Indians who constitute 1/6 of humanity. Hilltop, I'm getting the best of the intellect of a country that represents 1/6 of humanity. If I cannot globalize Indian thought, who the hell can? And then I said, Indian thought has already been globalized. You go to Japan, you see remnants of Indian thought everywhere, in their vocabulary, in their everyday usage. You go to China, in Shanghai, you see a Sanskrit inscription. You look at Intel chip, there must be an Intel chip in every computer, but there must be an Indian behind every Intel chip. I mean, Indian thought is all pervasive, except that we don't see an Indian product. You go to Ginza in Japan, you go to the Milan supermarket, you go to New York, you don't see a single Indian product. But you see, ideas of India have percolated. The idea was to create a center of a nucleus so that others can see how an institution can be built solely on the metal of global impact of Indian thinking. When I came to IIM Kozhikode, the steps leading to the administrative block was called Harvard steps. So I asked a question to my faculty, do you want to be a second grade Harvard or a first grade IIM? The answer was obvious. Then I renamed the hostels in terms of music ragas, ragas of Indian classical music. And my faculty asked me, student asked me, what is the connection between music and management? I said, in management, if you don't perform, you have to face the music, so better be ready. But it is another matter that our DNA is musical, our heart rhythms are musical, all our biorhythms are musical. Organization is about rhythms. It is not just about linearity of the machine. It is about the rhythm of human beings. And so it took me about 10 years, Asit, to even get my faculty to buy into this idea. But once they saw that we were getting accredited and ranked based on this vision statement alone, he said, this is something very unique. We haven't seen an Indian school that is talking so proudly of its own heritage. Others started looking a little reluctantly, but nevertheless, squarely at us. And this year, when we are ranked ahead of IIM Calcutta, the first IIM of India by NIRF, ranked in the top 75 by Financial Times, people started taking notice. And I've been writing on this for 30 years, and I'm not the first one who started. We had a colleague called S.K. Chakravarti in IIM Calcutta who pioneered. So we had these 4 great icons of India, Aurobindo, Vivekananda, Gandhi and Tagore, and we brought them together. And we went from corporation to corporation to ask for funding for starting a center in IIM Calcutta. Ratan Tata was the first one to fund it. He gave us 60 lakhs in those days, it'll be about 6 crores now. And we started a center. But that center didn't take off because it was a center, like a quality center in a corporation. The moment you have a quality center, that's the end of quality. And so how do you build this in the DNA? So we started creating matrices. I'm saying, how many of your case studies, how many of your FT50 published articles are solving India's problems? So we have to look at how are we, because if you solve one of India's intractable problem, you become globally relevant because you can scale up those solutions. No, it can be relevant for Brazil, it can be relevant for Saudi Arabia. So how do you solve those problems? How do you record that this is the way? So a bunch of people from ASSB, our accrediting body from America, they asked me, tell us one instance when you can talk about an Indian mode of solving a problem. I said, look at Chandrayaan launch. One of my students from the EPGP program was responsible for delivering a component at a price performance point. At a price performance point that was unthinkable in NASA. So if you have to create aspiration among other countries to even be able to look at the space program. I was in Japan, the Japanese said, we couldn't go to the moon, India has. But the point is that in a high-tech country, is not able to do that. So the point is, I was trying to make is that we already have global proportions in ideas, in terms of our population, in terms of innovation. We don't have the courage to say we will go global. So we have a beautiful soft drink called Limca, and Limca sells out to the next highest bidder. Bisleri sells out to another person, and Hotmail sells out to another entity because we don't want to grow, because we think we can't have global. So that aspiration has to come back, and if IIMs, IITs cannot bring back that aspiration, who else can, you tell me, in India? So we thought as a first step we should announce to the world that we are here to globalize Indian thought. We had the Prime Minister of India inaugurating our first GIT conference. We had Tarun Khanna from Harvard, Deepak Jain from Kellogg, and people like that who endorsed the idea. And so we started on, and this book is a way of saying that, yeah, we have done it, and how we have done it, please read it. You read that book to know how you've done it.
Good, thank you. And so while we appreciate Indian thoughts, and we know that this, like what we talk about circular economy, but he just has been to Aurobindo Ashram, Pondicherry. So mother there, already she was talking about this concept of circular economy, not in using that particular term. But what today we talk about triple bottom line, that your people and profit and planet, but I believe that India has been practicing it for such a long time. So there is we see that there must be some difference when it comes to management science between Eastern and Indian thoughts and Western thoughts from the management science perspective. So could you elaborate what are those areas of difference? So that is where we need to bridge the gap by globalizing Indian thoughts and making it a better place to live. Yeah.
Thank you. You know, you have to understand our systems, processes, structures mimic what is happening anywhere in the world. So if you look at an organization, the upper layer of the organization, the visible surface of the organization is not Indian at all. The chair you're sitting on, the instruments you're using, none of the stuff that you call civilized way of conducting was invented in India. But we were born here. People would be very different. There are three distinct ways that I see the Indian mind grasps reality in very distinct ways than our counterparts in the world. Look at Indian film. Look at an Indian film. In the middle of a dance sequence or a car chase scene, the hero and the heroine breaks into a dance, which has no connection apparently with the courtroom scene. And you wonder, how can people sit there in this illogical, irrelevant stuff? But we sit there. So movie maker in India achieves what the Western world takes millions of dollars to do, to get to what you might call the willing suspension of disbelief, where the analytical mind and the intuitive mind work in tandem. Look at how a grocer manages 7 different customers at the same time. Look at Kumbh Mela, every 12 years, 10 million people gathering. How we slow each other down. Look at any aspect of Indian organized life where the people inside the organization make use of systems very differently. So one thing is that as opposed to the analytical tradition, we have a synthetic tradition. They can combine rigor with intuition. Another difference between Indian thought and Western thought is flexibility of the Indian approach to reality. Sometimes it translates as chaos. In Calcutta, where I grew up, we had to have an extraordinary driving skill, because whereas in rest of the world you could drive on the right or the left, in Calcutta you had to drive on whatever was left. And the result was you had to be aware, flexible, open to opportunities. So the Indian words like jugaad and all have come out of the same foundation, that our approach to negotiating reality is pretty flexible. And that's one quality that defines leadership. If you're too linear, too rigid, look at what happened after subprime crisis in America. Look at what happened after COVID. The economy could bounce back much better than anywhere else in the world, because our resilience is based on our flexibility in terms of looking at the worldview is essentially not as linear as the West. And the third frontier where India is distinct from the Western world is that the West is looking at rationality to the point of idiotic rationality. India looks at rationality as one means. There are other. So we are looking at buddhi vritti and hridaya vritti at the same time. Buddhi vritti is culture of the intellect. Hridaya vritti is culture of the heart, the emotions. So I often ask performers, managers doing performance appraisal. I said, you do performance appraisal of 6, 8, 10 of your subordinates. You have a format, analytical skill, leadership skill, team building, and you give marks out of 5 or 10, whatever, with their rating scale. And then you add up and you give a promotion. Do you really do that, or do you decide whom to promote first and then fill up those forms? 9 times out of 10 people tell me that they first decide whom to promote first based on an intuitive grasp, and then they fill up that form. So you can see how the Indian mind works. It works in a very different way because our context is to be able to see beyond the obvious, look beyond the obvious, to see the spirit behind matter, to see the abstract behind the concrete. When my first visit to America, I asked the audience, can you tell me what half-boiled egg means to you? The story appears in my book too, you can read this story in full. Half-boiled, the response comes from there, Asit. An egg boiled for half the time. I said, no, in my case it was a mother. Today happens to be her birthday, so I'm celebrating her birthday. A mother cutting a fully boiled egg in 2 equal halves so that there's no sibling rivalry by a thread, so that we could have half an egg for tiffin. That was the definition of half-boiled egg, right? America hasn't heard of a half-boiled egg or a cutting chai, right? Why? Because there was no resource crunch of a magnitude that we have faced. So our biomemories are designed for creativity, for innovation. And we are distinctly different from what the Western world has to offer by way of solutions to problems. Whereas do you see a washing machine being used to churn lassi, as in Punjab? Where do you see a washing machine being used to churn lassi? You don't see it anywhere. So the ability to survive in an innovation economy, to be able to churn the obvious into not so obvious products and processes, is the unique gift of the Indian mind. And we are circular in our thinking, not so linear. I hope I've made my points. Thank you. Thank you.
Good, and taking it forward, like there are many works on, these laws of matter and laws of spirit. Again, coming back to the Eastern spirit and the Western spirit. So, Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy, laws of matter, then laws of spirit. So do you think they can complement each other? How do you think they can coexist? And how can leaders practice that today, in today's scenario?
Wonderful. So the thing is, India had a model of leadership that followed also from Western traditions, also followed that model. It's called Rajarshi, Raja and Rishi. The Western model was the sage king. And you see this. Now, if you look at 3 very action-oriented people of Indian origin or world origin, you look at Arjun, you look at Alexander, you look at Chandragupta Maurya. You say Arjun is the active hero, but the reflective person is Krishna. Alexander is the active hero, but the reflective person is Aristotle. Chandragupta is the active hero, reflective person is Chanakya. And so you had the reflective and the active going in tandem. But Indians went a step further because they had plenty of time, food was easily available. So they defined reality in a language that was so unmistakably brilliant and very close to the science of today. The governing principle of this universe, according to the Vedantic tradition, Vedanta is not really religion. Vedanta is a scientific inquiry into reality. It's called the end of all knowledge, so therefore Vedanta. Vedanta says, look, the ultimate reality is Ishvara. Ish means king, Vara means nature. Somebody who rules nature is Ishvara. How do you know that nature is being ruled? Because there are laws governing nature. So if you buy a new car and you stand under a jackfruit tree, and the jackfruit is right enough, it will fall on the car, make a dent. Because jackfruit is following the law of gravity, the car is resisting it, and there will be a dent in the car. Even if you are a Shankaracharya or the king of the land, you will still have a dent. The laws will have to be obeyed. So they said there are three cause-effect relationships that govern this universe in terms of laws of Ishvara. They said first, wherever there is an effect, there must be a cause. So wherever there is smoke, there must be fire. So please figure out the cause. The Japanese said root cause, figure out the cause. Then they said, one profound cause can produce million effects. One seed can produce a whole forest of trees. And then they said, if the cause is removed, nothing of the effect remains. So if the ocean is removed, the waves cannot be there anymore. And they said, in matter, you can separate cause and effect. In the spirit, cause and effect becomes one. Like a fan moving at high speed, you think it's one body moving. You can't separate at high speed. So spirit, matter rarefied is spirit. Spirit condensed and made available to sensory reality is matter. So they are not alien things. Matter and spirit are interconnected, but only with reference to Ishvara. So what is Ishvara? And they said Ishvara is both the material cause and the efficient cause of this universe. Ishvara is in the laws. Ishvara is in the relationship between matter. It is also the material cause of the universe. So there is nothing but Ishvara. So we start a journey. You start a academic study, you start by offering this academic work to Ishvara. You can imagine an idol, or you can make your book into an idol. You touch your parents' feet, your parents are your Ishvara. Because you say that beyond me there is this transcendental spirit which guides me in matter, and this spirit must be honored for the matter to function in an appropriate manner. What is wrong in that? It is a strictly logical and a robust inquiry into reality. And they figured out, when Ishwar is gone, nothing remains. So that must be the ultimate cause. And they said, okay, it transcends the realm of matter. By looking into matter, you can't find that out. So you have to transcend the limitations of your sensory apparatus. And so the entire yoga system evolved. What is happening in Matri Mandir today is precisely that. They brought soil from so many countries into a globalized wholeness. You see, we are transcending our limitations of land, geography, in pursuit of that one cause that runs this universe. If this is not global, you tell me what is global in its conception. I hope.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we just listened to his profile, and what perhaps we missed mentioning there, that Dr. Chatterjee is also an entrepreneur. So he has been an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs always talk about innovation and skill. And we see that he has brought about this innovation and skill in building this institute, IIM Kozhikode, from an obscure local business schools to what it is today. And it has come A, B, and now it is K. So if it goes one notch above, then it becomes AKB. That is my acronym. So I wrote to Dr. Devashish Chatterjee, just go one step ahead, then it becomes my acronym. But don't go above A. So that's I pleaded to him. So my question to Dr. Chatterjee is that how do you bring this aspect of innovation and scale to a traditional industry like education? So many of us are into education industry. Already there are 3 other directors and deans, and there will be others. So that would be a lesson for all of us. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. In my modest opinion, innovation is creativity tested out in the bedrock of practice. So innovation doesn't work in your head. It works only when it is out of your head and is tested out there in the world. And if somebody is buying your idea with their attention, with their money, whichever currency they are buying your idea with, it's a piece of innovation. And Asita is very right. Education industry is very, very pathetic in terms of innovation. I can recall I was in Ohio, this University of Ohio, and the president of the university was saying, I have a Chinese professor who teaches ancient Chinese literature. And I told him to modernize this because for modern China, he has to teach some courses in Chinese for the rest of the world. He says, no, I have been recruited only to teach ancient Chinese. I cannot teach modern Chinese. It happens to professors in IIMs, and if they're teaching one subject, if you ask them to take another class in another subject, they will resist. That's not what I was recruited for. So I decided that we'll start a course called Money. This course is called Money. I said 32 professors have to co-teach this course. How money is made, how money is distributed, how money is marketed, what is the symbolic value of having money, what is the social value. So many questions, 32 professors, and it was an experiment in utmost failure. They fought with each other. But one thing we learned from that lesson is that the future of Indian education and management education, to be precise, would be to think of what we should stop doing. Teaching through subject silos is not going to be. So we created a vision called 2047. This vision book, it was a coffee table book. In 2013, I had this faculty from Oxford. He's now in Ahmedabad University. And another one from Shantiniketan who I recruited. 3 of us produced this coffee table book. I was editing the book. And the book was called 2047. The reason why it was called 2047 is because it happens to be 50 years of IIM Kozhikode's existence. It so happened, it struck me at that point in time, that within a few years, 2047 will become a rallying point for political leaders because India is independent. So I said, this is an inflection point we might catch hold of. And I wrote that book and I distributed it to all the chief ministers of the country, Chief Justice of India, everybody who mattered. And I got a response from 2 chief ministers, very prompt response. One was Mamata Banerjee from Bengal, the other was Narendra Modi from Gujarat. Mrs. Banerjee offered me a job as Vice Chancellor, which I declined. Imagine if I had been a Vice Chancellor now, I would probably be in jail. And the current Prime Minister wrote to me saying there is a very inspiring thing with a quote from Swami Vivekananda. 10 years after the book was published, I get a call from the Secretary, Ministry of Education, Sanjay Murthy, and he says, in a cabinet has taken a decision. Prime Minister said, there's a crazy professor in Kozhikode who had sent me a book 10 years back. Can you ask him to do a vision statement for Indian education for 2047? So we produced a research report. We asked for money, which came from the government within 24 hours. We interviewed 30,000 school children, teachers, and we said, what Indian education looks like in 2047 is as follows. Our children in school are saying that they wouldn't be citizens of one country. They may be residing in one country, but they'll be citizens of at least 4 or 5 virtual countries. Music will be multidimensional. It has to be tuned into their taste. There should be 50,000 colleges. One college should teach urban agriculture. Another college should teach spin bowling alone. right? Children want to do really well in something, and they're not bothered about jobs and stuff. They just want to do something they're passionate about. So the entire orientation of education has to shift from the obsession of perpetuating a teacher-centric body of knowledge to a learning-centric, not even learner-centric, to a learning-centric conversation between the teacher and the taught at the same level. So we designed a classroom called Gurukul, which you saw when you visited our campus. It has a grass floor, it has got vertical gardens, it has got all the elements of nature. And you'll see that these Gurukuls are conversation hubs, because real conversation is going to go, the romance of learning will go offline. The bread and butter stuff will still be online, right? But romance will be offline. And you have to perpetuate the romance of learning for the schools to remain relevant. Universities will not be standalone buildings, they'll be hubs for interconnected sharing of specialized knowledge. And so we have to redesign our thinking first. And innovation came out of that. And so all of a sudden I realized Suzuki Motor Company told us, you know, you guys have done, Prime Minister's office was telling us that you've done a project called 2047 for Indian government. Can you do a future of mobility for Suzuki? I said, that'll cost you 2 crores. He said, we are willing to spend. So they gave us a project where we defined the future of mobility, because we were seen as futuristic as an institution. So innovation starts with a creative idea to solve a problem, but it ends up being ecological. If it is ecological, if it is only my proprietary right, then it would not go this far. I shared it with a large number of people, and from there opportunities came. We began to rethink not just Indian education. I just sent a note to the PMO that we should have a ministry that draws on culture, education, technology, Ministry of External Affairs, and we should create a Ministry of Soft Power where we will have citizenship behavior training across a spectrum of 1 million school teachers. That you should not spit on the road, that you should not allow a minister to create a barricade right in the middle of something, that you should persist in keeping your roads clean if anybody... So this India can only change when our mindsets about what should be relevant for the future changes. And our question was, are we going to remain relevant to the world in 2047, doing what we are doing today? And the answer was no. So what must we drop? What must we stop doing to remain relevant? And we have stopped many things. I am Korikod, I have stopped recruiting only for degrees. I also recruit for attitude. You know, I've stopped recruiting the conventional way that we recruit our staff. And so the thing is, many changes have happened, but the primary driver of that, how do you remain useful to the world going forward? How do you remain relevant to the world, to the next generation? That was the basis of our innovation.
Very good. Excellent. Now this Leadership Chronicles, this book, don't think that I'm promoting this book and I get some commission from Penguin or Dr. Chatterjee. But this Leadership Chronicle, as I said, it's very, very engaging, you know. I'm not selling this book anyway, so it is very engaging. And I could not just stop it. I just kept reading it. And it has a lot of interesting anecdotes. So, Dr. Chatterjee, how do you recollect those anecdotes? I'm sure all of us have many anecdotes, but we don't recollect. So, do you note it down, or what is your way of capturing all these moments?
Great, good question. I wish I had known. But the fact is, when the book was being conceptualized, my colleague said that, sir, you should collect 360-degree view of who you are, what your work has been from multiple stakeholders. I said, fine. So we put together 150 people who had responded with, pages of writing about what I did, how I did it. Then we sent it to Penguin, the best publisher that we could think of. And the editor of Penguin turned around and said, this is a very exciting set of stories. How did you get them? I said, we have asked people to write, and whatever they wrote without editing, we have given it to you. He said, but you have to speak in the first person narrative. First person singular, otherwise the book is going to be uninteresting. It will be a collection of stories about you by others, so you must write it first person. I said, if I have to recollect the first person narrative, then I have to look at this. Who is this first person who's experienced these stories? So I looked at each of these stories and recollected those moments when these stories unfolded. And I realized that nothing is lost in life. And everything remains with you. In fact, the book is the story of my life. It is not my life. You have to understand, in your life, you are living, breathing every moment. You're living right now. You're a living entity. And you're living millions and billions of moments. You don't capture those moments for posterity. Gandhi is known by only a few moments, not his whole life. So the story of your life is very, very important, much more important than your own life. Because it is the stories that circulate beyond you. When I am no longer alive, the vision of 2047 has a chance to be alive if the story is told well. Great leaders have been great storytellers. Great technologies have been great storytellers. And if you learn, and this is true of tech institutions, very poor in narrative. If you ask an IIT graduate to write about any subject, his answers will be short, to the point, cryptic, like a Q&A format in an interview. You asked our MBA in liberal studies, we started the first MBA in liberal studies in Kozhikode. They will write a whole paragraph. So storytelling is the ability to synthesize elements of your life. You don't tell everything. You don't tell all the truth, but all that you tell is the truth. At least appears like the truth. Like setting your washing clothes, wash clothes out in the sun to dry. You don't organize these clothes in a way that it embarrasses you, right? There are some flamboyant shirts, there are some stuff. You do it, you tell your story in a manner that will make sense to the world out there. And we have to learn to tell our stories well. To educate our children, we must learn to tell stories well.
putting is that how is it selling in the West, outside of India? So if you could throw some light on it.
Thank you. You see, my first book was published in the US. It was called Leading Consciously, with a foreword by Peter Senge from MIT. He was the biggest name, systems dynamics. I would have accepted the book. I recognize that when the economic might of a nation dominates the world scene, whatever that nation says becomes gospel truth. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey sold 20 odd millions, 18 millions. Everybody was, CEOs in India, everywhere was swearing by it. So I went to his publisher in California and I said, what is the origin of this book? He said, the Mormon Christian tradition. So they went back to pre-Christian traditions and used metaphors that are used in Vedanta very liberally. And I said, this has become a worldwide bestseller because of the ability to package and write. Then I recognized that Stephen Covey has written another, because it was thought of as Bhagavad Gita for managers. Then Stephen Covey wrote another book called The Eighth Habit. I said, if 7 was not enough, why do you bring 8th? Bhagavad Gita was not revised and said, this is the newest edition of Bhagavad Gita. So the point is that you are perennially, anxiously churning ideas without understanding the depth to which these ideas, from which these ideas have come from. So America went and taught Japan quality movement. Japan started a quality movement based on American thing, beat the Americans hollow in their own game. And then you know what is happening in Japan today? There are people who cannot claim their bank because they are dead. They live lonely lives. Divorces are happening at the age of 60. When people retire, they have no meaning in each other. A father and a daughter is not talking to each other after she goes to high school. There are suicides that are happening in this suicide village in Japan, where people just take some food, they go to the forest with minimum provision, they die inside the car in a place where there is no internet connectivity, nobody can rescue them. So you can see a society on the verge of complete decline. Economically prosperous, societally disastrous. Would you copy that model? Would you emulate that model? Do you think it's worthy of emulation? J.R.D. Tata, one of our greatest wealth creators, said, I don't want India to be the best country in the world. I want to be the happiest country in the world. I want to see a happy country. Now, our notion is India should not just be best in the world. We have to be best in the world so that our ideas go abroad. We must be best for the world at the same time. Best for the world. Are our practices for the long haul, long range? Is the population of 1.4 billion people can be converted into what you might describe as human capital rather than population, with a skill set, with an attitude that matches the best in the West? Can we do that process so that this population doesn't become a burden for the world with disease, with poverty? And so India's role is now of global stature. What you saw, resurfacing of another euphoria of the Republic, is just the surface. What is underneath it is the aspiration of a nation to feel great. For a long time, we are subdued. We thought deputy magistrate is how far we could get. You know, we're very subdued as a nation. And so that is breaking out with Mahendra Singh Dhoni winning the World Cup, with Rahman dominating the world of music. Global import of Indian thought is everywhere. I get invited every quarter to some country or the other in the Western world to present my ideas. Because, you know, there's a bankruptcy of ideas. Trust me. I attended leadership programs in 1 year, Harvard, MIT, INSEAD, IMD, Stanford. They were talking about the same stuff. It was a monolith. If in India you go from one state to another, you know, this accrediting body comes and tells me that you do not have sufficient international students. I said, what is your definition of international students? They look at this European school. Their students come from Germany, work in France, do internship in Luxembourg. I said, my student comes from Kashmir, learns in Kerala, does internship in Mumbai, works in Delhi. Is he not international? What is your definition of international? Counting passports? So these notions, these benchmarks that is described as inefficient, inadequate. Our greatest challenge is we feel inadequate. This is our greatest challenge. We have extraordinary capability, but inadequacy is second nature. So I have to borrow an idea. You can borrow technology, I understand. You can borrow food, I understand. Why do you have to borrow ideas? This country is, is a country of ideas. You must start exporting those surplus ideas. You know, one of the things that I do each time I have to present on my book, I ask some critical questions. For instance, in Boston, I asked if Boston had the same population as Calcutta, and if it had to manage that kind of a population with the resource base that Calcutta has, what would Boston do differently? They were clueless. Clueless. Then you see the enormity of our problems, the challenges we have faced. So India cannot be measured in, somebody was raising this question in Pondicherry about China and India. How China has gone far. You see, you can look at what is happening to China. They converge around something. There's an absolute decimation of ingenuity and creativity. Singapore has started a whole course on innovation. But it doesn't help, because if you are going to robotize a population for several generations, all of a sudden China said, oh, one child policy was not good, so you can have as many children as possible. Now, hey, go forward. Singapore was holding cruises for couples to get married, but they're refusing to marry, because it has become a conditioning that they can't escape from. So the point I'm trying to make, if you have a long-range vision of a nation, where is Roman Empire today? Where is Greek Empire? Look at what's happening to Italian cities. You cannot even go to those toilets. They're much worse than toilets here. Look at Venice. Look at the dirt and the muck there. And so all these systems that have been created based on colonized wealth, based on surpluses that you never earned yourself, it is showing up. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing what happens to wealth? Do you see what is happening to England today?
Absolutely.
And so that's the story that's going to unfold. So if you have not been able to create a sustainable way of growing wealth, if you cannot connect wealth to societal and environmental concerns, then that wealth is going to be lopsided. You will be voted out by your community from that wealth creation process. You can't pollute a river and create wealth at the cost of the ecology. You can't do that any longer. That's going to be the story unfolding. India has a much better chance to survive here, at least better than China as far as I can make out.
Wonderful. So my last question, and before I leave it to the audience, and dinner is being readied, so we still have about 10-15 minutes. So academic world is all about collaboration within the institute, across the institute, and we find that some collaborations are divine collaborations. Like Parshuraman, his short call model, like the PZV, that the kind of collaboration they did, and it just happens. So we meet some great people, and maybe by accident, by destiny, or by good luck. Similarly, this book, Leadership Chronicles, it talks about how Debashish Chatterjee met this gentleman, John Naisbitt, he's a celebrity author, during his fellowship at Harvard Business School. And he asked that how to create, that John said, what is your frame for the future? So he was made to wonder that what would be the frame for the future. And this gentleman, this John Naisbitt, used to play with a lot of data and all that, and he used to draw insight and create a frame for the future. So that left Dr. Chatterjee wondering what should be the frame for the future. And around the same time, he reflected on his association learning from Dr. Sitangshu Chakraborty in IIM Kolkata, who was his guide. And that's where he came up with this idea of this globalizing Indian thoughts. Incidentally, at IIM Kolkata also, they do a lot of work on Indian knowledge system. So I find that his encounter with Sitangshu Chakraborty and this John Naisbitt is kind of a divine encounter, and that led to this kind of philosophy to emerge. So my question to Dr. Chatterjee is that does it happen maybe once in 1,000 times, or we all have such possibility around, but we tend to overlook, or we don't know how to find such kind of a, this pulse around and learn from there.
See, if your mind is open to possibilities, you'll encounter possibilities everywhere. If the mind is a closed loop of assumed certainties about life, then you will not see those possibilities. John Nasbitt and my meeting was so fortuitous. I was at Harvard Square and I was struggling to carry my heavy suitcase. Indians carry everything in their suitcases. Nasbitt was 75 plus. He took hold of my suitcase and he said, I'm going to take you to my home where I'll tell you how I work. So I went to his apartment near Harvard Square. And he had a huge hall that was full of white walls, but we couldn't see anything white. You could see only sticky notes, stick pads in multiple colors. He said, what are these? I said, these are trends that I'm spotting from reports of newspapers in 100 years horizon. And I've taken $12 million in advance from the publisher because I've been working at it. My wife and I had to divorce because I didn't have patience for this kind of work. So I had to marry my publisher. That's Nasbitt speaking for you. He was advisor to 4 US presidents, by the way. And he showed me how he spotted those mega trends. This is not the age of algorithms. So you had to actually look at trends through the stickies. And his book changed the perspective. So he said, it is not as though I am going to predict the future. I recognize you could create the future. If globalizing Indian thought, this is my 7th campus in 6 days, campus activity in 6 days. If I can go to 100 campuses in India, I can talk about it. There'll be some professor somewhere who would be open to this idea. I say, look, it's happening, the churning is happening. And the point is that you have to be open to possibilities. You may say, okay, I don't know if this idea will fly, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm very passionate about it, and I'm going to keep the door open. And things are happening in ways that, Asit, I can't explain to you. There are people who are asking me from the industry space, what are you doing in an institution? I'll start a think tank, I'll fund your project. You can sit in Germany, you can, one of those major industrialists of India. Anywhere in the world you sit and you produce something that we can use in our organization. So I have refrained from taking those offers, but the fact is that there are opportunities. The moment your book is out there, this is my 17th book, and I've written only on one theme, India and its relevance for the world. So the point I'm trying to make is this, that when you set your ideas in the open without worrying as to who will copy it or who will not take it, you just give it and you expect a return on your investment. It happens. S.K. Chakravarti was a pioneer, but he didn't have the ability to market, you see, an idea whose time has come. So he did this work 30 years back. We started this work 30 years back. Only today has the political establishment, the cultural establishment is finding these ideas to be mainstream. The rise of a national pride, these ideas are becoming mainstream. Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence, that book became mainstream when too much of idiotic rationality was killing organizations. So it hit a trend. Whether my book will hit a trend or somebody else's, that's pure luck. But what is not luck? In fact, there is nothing called luck. In India, there's this interpretation when one car hits another car, you say, Mera bhagya mein likha hai, this is my. It's not bhagya, it's law of physics. Two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. As simple as that. So it was not luck. It was hard work and openness to possibilities. I think it is paying off. It will pay off because all IIMs today or IITs today are thinking of Indian knowledge systems. I can tell you that. Tomorrow I have a conversation in ITC Chola with Kharagpur IIT director. And the conversation is soft power of India. Imagine in a IIT IIM directors meeting together, enlightened audience on soft power of India. And I thought, when was this a subject ever for discussion going forward? So things have happened, and we are lucky that it's happening.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Chatterjee, for your valuable time. So maybe we can have 2 questions from the audience. So we had a wonderful interaction, and So maybe we can have one or two questions from the audience, if you have.
Please quickly let us know your name so that I know who you are.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. My name is S. Rangabhashyam.
Can you speak slightly louder, clearer to the mic?
Good evening, sir. My name is S. Rangabhashyam.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my question is, how do you envision the future of Indian leadership on the international stage?
How do I?
Envision the future of Indian leadership on the international stage.
Who is the Prime Minister of England? Who is the Vice President of the United States? Who is the President of Fiji?
Indians.
Who is the most prolific batsman in the world? Who is the most prolific bowler in the world?
Indian.
Which country has the largest population base? If the unit of currency of a nation was not yen, rupee or dollar, if it was one person, the population, the currency of a nation was one person, unit of currency was one human being, then which will be the wealthiest country?
India.
The point I'm trying to make is that the acceptance of Indian thing in the world does not matter at all. What matters is India's acceptance of what already is, what it already is. As long as we are not looking out, in strategy, we often have a saying that if strategic intent is to get as much resource from outside as possible, your own resource base is weakened. If you're not using your own capabilities, internal capabilities, solve your own problems, you're importing people, ideas, borrowing them. So our ability to use our own capabilities to solve our own problems will essentially transform our dealership into leadership. We are only dealing. This is dealership. You deal with a problem, import a solution, copy from somebody else. Why Bollywood would be called an imitation of Hollywood? Because you don't write original scripts. The day we start doing it, it will not be called Bollywood, it will be called Indian cinema. That's why Chennai produces much better cinema, because there's some originality, much more originality than Mumbai. So very soon Bollywood would be called, Chennai will be the film city. The point I'm trying to make is this: we have enough in our reserves to be accepted. So the obsession to get accepted by somebody else, please stop that. We are the world. It's 1.4 billion. First, look at acceptance in your own community for an idea. And then the world will know you. If you're a national name in India, if you're a number one product in any category in India, the world knows you. And so try and look at achieving. So if I am Kodikod does something that is known pan-India, the whole world will know us. And they know us. In their own way, they know us. That's why we are ranked where we are ranked. The point I'm trying to make is that don't worry about what the world says. Look at what should be the right approach to solving our problems. How can you use our internal resources to do that? That's the best way forward, isn't it? Am I saying something that is abstract?
Yes,
I think
sir.
it's okay.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank
Hello, sir.
you. Yes.
Hello, sir. My name is Sailesh.
Louder. I can't
My
hear.
name is Sailesh.
Yes.
Yes, my question is all about as young leaders of maybe the leaders of the future. So, what could we expect or like to apply as our thought process as Indians? How could we apply and globalize these Indian thoughts into reality?
How to globalize?
How could we, for example, if we work in a big organization as leaders,
Right.
like future leaders, how could we globalize these Indian thoughts?
How to
How could we globalize our Indian thoughts, our Indian ethos?
How do we do that? You see, the thing is this, that first of all, you are not a future leader, you are a leader. Future and past is only a time frame. A country starts becoming globally relevant when it lives its own genius as a country. The genius of France is not spirituality. The genius of France is aesthetics. The genius of America is entrepreneurship. The genius of England is trade and commerce. Now, India's genius is to see the world as its own. The idea of borderless humanism. That our notion of borders is different from the notion of borders anywhere else in the world. We are everywhere. See, I was in a place called Iqaluit, which is 4 hours flying time from Ottawa. It is an ice-covered landscape, very close to the North Pole. And I was shivering. I was seeing an ice desert in the middle of summer. And I said, I must be the first Indian who has come here. No Indian will dare to come in this kind of place. Within half an hour, I get an invitation from the Indian community. He says, Sri Ravi Shankar had done an art of living here. So we'll have samosa and chai party in the evening. I said, oh my God. You go to South Pole, there's a shop that caters to people who want to go on snow. And this is run by a Gujarati gentleman in South Pole. So you can see Indian presence everywhere. I'm in Oxford, my first talk in Oxford. I go to a shop to buy an umbrella. I see a Sikh gentleman, now located in Afghanistan. He said, can I attend what are you doing here? I said, I have a talk here. Can I attend your talk? I said, of course you can attend my talk, but I'm not educated like you are. I said, you are educated in your own way, I'm educated in my own way. He says, how? I said, you know how to enter a customer's mind through his heart. I know how to enter a student's heart through his mind. That's the only difference. But we are in the same business. The point is, in India, as long as we have respect for each other's capabilities, as we do not look at a person with disdain, that's a time when we'll arrive in India. I'm going to end this conversation, Asir, if you permit me, with a story of my conversation with D. Hawk. If you want to know who D. Hawk is, he's the man who created Visa. What you carry as Visa card is his creation. In the 1970s, he reinvented personal banking by giving you a Visa card. And I had a 10 minutes conversation opportunity with him. I called him up in his office in California. I was in Harvard Business School. I had an office there. He responded to the call. And I said, sir, how would you like to be remembered? He said, as a good grandfather. What is your current occupation? I'm a farmer in California. I said, but I have to tell you about Visa. I have to talk about Visa. How did you invent Visa? He said, I defined money in a different way. How did you define money? He said, money is human energy impulse that can be alphanumerically coded on a plastic card. And those impulses could be transmitted from one continent to another, provided there are two things behind the transmission process. One is called the value of the transmission and the trust behind it. If any institution has trust and value, it can be a bank. In the 70s. I said, such a humongous definition of money. How did you convert this definition into a product? He said, I gave you a business card-like thing called Visa card. You can be a Rockefeller or ordinary feller. If you put the card in, money will come out if there is trust. Banking became easy because of that card. I said, that's execution of the highest order. But how did you convince 132 banks who had to agree to the idea of Visa for you to be successful? He said, I had a mantra. I said, that's an Indian word. What does the word mantra mean to you? He said, anything that works is mantra. I said, tell me what works. He said, each time I met a person superior to me in rank and hierarchy or talent, my mantra for him or her would be, I am as great to myself as you are to yourself, therefore we are equal. Then he says, there was another part of the mantra. Whenever I met a person inferior to me, my mantra for him or her would be, you are as great to yourself and as I am to myself, therefore we are equal. I said, we've come to the end of a conversation, but I am reminded of the Indian Namaste. He said, that's your national greeting. I said, it's much more than a greeting. So what do I understand by Namaste? I said, you have to fold your two hands together, palms touching each other. You have to lower your head in the direction of your palms, your hands. And you have to put your heart in the whole gesture, unlike the airline's Namaste, right? Your heart is in the gesture. You combine your cognitive capability, your execution ability, and your emotional content in the pursuit of something extraordinary in both of us. You call it God. With folded hands, with all the power in my hands, with all the love in my heart, with my entire respect for you, cognitively, I acknowledge the divine that resides in you and me, Ishwara that resides in you and me, in equal measure. He was quiet at the other end of the phone. I said, if you're an atheist, you can replace the word God with Visa power. The formula will remain the same. How come? When your execution ability, when your cognitive ability and your emotional content come together in pursuit of the extraordinary in that human being, the human being becomes extraordinary. because each one of us have an endowment. Somebody is physically capable, somebody is mentally sharp, somebody is emotionally more responsive. You take the entire gamut of your population and convert them into capital. You will have globalized yourself. There's no doubt about it. Thank you.
Wonderful. So, thank you so much. So now we can have more questions during the dinner time. So I request Dr. Chatterjee to unveil the book, this Leadership Chronicles. And I request Tamil Nadu Chief Minister's fellowship participants to please come forward and receive the book from Dr. Chatterjee. And I requested him that next time we'll plan his talk to all the fellows. We have 30 fellows, 2 of them are here, along with the secretaries at Unadministrative Staff College. Yeah, please come forward.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you for your... Thank you, Professor Debashish Chatterjee, for your enlightening thoughts. I'm personally a great fan of storytelling. While he was mentioning about storytelling, I initially thought I will buy the book at the end of the talk. So I was kind of motivated and I had to rush back to the backside of the seating arrangement and then got the book. And he has been kind enough to accept my request to sign the book. And anyone who is interested in buying a copy of the book and getting it signed by Professor Debashish Chatterjee, that's an offer from him. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I now request one of our distinguished alumnus of BIM Trichy from the batch of BIM 14, Ms. Dr. V. Balamurugan, to felicitate Dr. Debashish Chatterjee. I'll take a couple of minutes to give a brief about Dr. Balamurugan and why we have specifically chosen him to do this honors. Dr. Balamurugan is a Bachelor of Engineering from Anna University and MTech from IIT Madras, MBF in Technology Management from the 97-99 batch of BIM Trichy. He worked in many nationally important defense projects such as Urgent Main Battle Tank. He is the former director of CVRDE of DRDO Government of India. And we thought, since Professor Chatterjee and the IIMK credo is about globalizing Indian thought, we thought he is the right person to felicitate Dr. Chatterjee, and we have invited him and he was kind enough to be part of this event. Over to you, please come on to the dais. Dr. Balamurugan, former director, CVRD, DRDO.
So Dr. Chatterjee is globalizing Indian thoughts and Dr. Bala is globalizing Indian battle tanks. Just one more thing. She said, yeah, yeah.
I now request my colleague, Dr. Sadrita Deb, to propose the word of thanks.
Okay, I'll keep it short. On behalf of BIM Trichy, I'm happy to stand here and offer my thanks to all delegates present here today. At the onset, I would like to thank Professor Debashish Chatterjee for engaging in such an insightful fireside chat on his new book and also leaving us with stories on leadership and his life. Thank you for sharing with us transformative wisdom to look beyond the obvious and pursuit of the extraordinary. I would also like to extend my gratitude to our chief guest, Dr. Balamurugan, former director, CVRDE, and BIM alumnus, for joining us today. Thank you, sir. I would also like to thank our director, Dr. Ashit K. Barma, for enthusiastically initiating such events on campus and beyond. My gratitude to Dr. Sujata, Dr. Rajeshwari, Professor K.C. John, alumni of IIM Kozhikode and BIM Trichy for joining us today. I would also like to thank the staffs of IIT Madras Alumni Interaction Center, staffs of Director Office, IIM Kozhikode, the faculty members, staffs, and students of BIM Trichy for your support. So before wrapping up, let's leave with the thoughts that our world is in humanitarian crisis, and we need leaders who envisions a sustainable and human-centric society. So today being January 23rd, I would like to end by commemorating the great leader, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who left us with the idea of togetherness while being ourselves and celebrating our uniqueness. Thank you.
May I now request all the guests to join us for dinner, please. Thank you. And you're most welcome to get a signed copy from Dr. Debashish Chatterjee. He's around for some time till we finish dinner.